Good evening.
Good evening, Rabbi. How are you?
Thank you. Baruch Hashem. Yeah. So I was thinking yesterday what we was talking about, and let me just set this up for a second. So as we said last time, regarding the issue with the oven, I think I got like a little bit more clarity with this right now because, as we mentioned yesterday, what happens is, with these ovens today, is that there are different compartments, right, in the oven. Basically, there's like two compartments. There's the top one, which is for baking. The bottom one is like a boiler, right? So the the bottom one is where the fire is. It's not really in the top chamber. So what that means is that there's a metal board, metal plate, which is in between the top chamber, the baking chamber, and the bottom, where the flame is. So therefore, when you open the door, it doesn't really bring the oxygen directly into that chamber where the fire is because there's a partition there. And therefore, I think there's room to be lenient with this, to open the door if there's a need for that, to take out the food, even if the flame is on.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's okay. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, the partition. And then we have all the other issues we discussed. So basically, I think there's what to rely on to open the door. So bottom line, I think whoever wants to do that to open the door, to remove the food, he definitely has what to rely on, especially because the prohibition is only rabbinical. And so the only problem really is, to return it to the oven. That you cannot do. If the oven is hot and still flaming, you're not allowed to return it. But besides that, you could just clear it out and use the food. I don't think there's any problem with that. All the more so you're allowed to close it. That's even more lenient because when you extinguish gas, it's only also right. There's really no prohibition there, so much to extinguish the gas, and the reason is because there's no coals left over after you extinguish it. There's no wick or coals left over. So since that's the case, really, extinguishing gas is not such a big problem. So therefore, there's definitely room to be lenient. Okay, whatever. Go to the next chapter. We're now approaching the candle lighting, right? We're going to get into that stuff soon. We're getting there. So it says says the tour. Right? When you have like twilight, you're not really sure if it's Shabbat yet or not. So what you cannot do is take maaser from something which is for sure untied. Also, you're not allowed to immerse utensils. And you're not allowed to light candles during that time. What do we call that? Ben Hashmashot, which is twilight. So it's like doubtfully day, doubtfully night. So when does that start? That period? When the sun goes down, right? Sunset. So it says, whoever is not expert, right? When that occurs, Ben Hashmashot, the twilight, so then he says you should light early, because since you're not sure. Because Rava told the sharecropper, Atun delo kimluchu leidlek להדליק כדאמר לרבה בשיעור דרבנן עד איכא שימשה בריש דיקלה. So it says, you're not sure, right, when you're supposed to light. So it says, you know what you do? Look at the sun, right? If it's like on top of the trees, that's the time to light. הדליקו, שגה, פירוש בעוד השמש בראש האילנות, וביום מעונן במטה חזו תרנגולים שיושבים על קורה. So he says, what about if it's a cloudy day, right? And you can't see the sun. What do you do then? So he says, in the town, look when the chickens are sitting on the beams. מבעוד יום. Well, it's still daytime. But when it comes to the the field, חזו הרבה שגם הם יושבים בעוד יום. He says, look at the crows when they're sitting, just like the chickens. When they're sitting, the crows, that's the time to light. The ravens. Ename irna perush. Alternatively, I can give you another sign, which is the irna. What is it? That esef shalav notin leruach. It's a type of grass, and its leaves are reclining to the wind. Shemesh shacharit. If it's going towards the sun, then it's morning. Notin la mizrach. If that's going towards the east, it's like midday. Zekufin, if they're like straight up, erect. Arvit, that's like evening, that's night. Notin lemarav. So again, right? I'll say this one more time. I think I didn't read it right. So one more time. When you have this grass, right, and the leaves are reclining towards the sun, that's morning. Notin lemizrach b'chatzei yom. If they're going towards the east, it's half day, it's midday. Zekufin arvit. If they're straight up, erect, that's night. Notin lemarav. Right. So in the evening, they're going towards the west. Interesting. So to repeat that, right? This grass, when it's going towards the sun, that's when you got to do it. In the morning, it goes towards the east, and at noon, it's erect, and then at night, it goes towards the west. That's a good reading. Okay, whatever. We're not going to use this kind of thing. Right? We can't use this kind of primitive kind of thing. We're too advanced for this. We're too sophisticated for this kind of stuff. Okay, anyway, so let's see the Bet Yosef Shulchan Aruch. Let's see what we got. So says Bet Yosef, "Tikun ma'al yahu ve'af agav deshivut be'almahu." I missed something here. One more time. So it says, right, brings the source. Mishnah so perk bemed madmenikim. The Mishnah in Lamed Al Amud Aleph in Shabbat. Peresh Rashi explains, and me'asin tevadai. We don't take maser from something which is for sure untithed, as we said, during the twilight time. The tikkun mi'aliyahu, because this is like you're fixing it up to make it edible. So you're fixing it. So even though it's a rabbinical prohibition, kasavra gazu al shvut. He holds that they also decreed regarding rabbinic prohibitions, af ben hashmashot, even during twilight, even though it's only a doubt. Okay, that's interesting. The end matbilin etakilim. We don't immerse the utensils. This is also a rabbinic prohibition. Then because it looks like you're fixing the utensil. All the more so we shouldn't light the candles. The sfeka deoraita, because that's already like it's a doubt from the Torah, right? Since you're lighting a fire, so that's even worse. So it says, since we hold that anything, whatever is only rabbinic, lo gazu alav ben hashmashot. They didn't decree to refrain from that during the twilight. Ukemosh katav Rabbeinu b'siman shin mem bet, like the Tur wrote in this chapter. Im Ken, he says, if so, Ma'asin Tavadai, then we write, do take tithe from the sure untithe, ben hashmashot, during twilight. Aval Rabbeinu b'siman shin mem bet, but he says the Torah in this chapter 342, Katav de'adi aminan de lo gazu alav. That which they said, he writes like this. That which they said, right? They didn't decree ben hashmashot on these things on during the twilight. Dafka letzorach mitzvah. That's only if it's for the mitzvah. Or shayad tarud, or let's say he was busy with some activity. Behu b'divrei Rambam. That comes from Rambam. He says, "Perek Chavdalad umashma shehu shelo kedat Rashi." So it implies that it's not like Rashi. The imita de Rashi, because if it's true that Rashi also holds this way, then why should he qualify the Mishnah according to one who says Gazur Shvut that they decreed on rabbinic prohibitions even during twilight? Even according to one who says Lo Gazur Matze Atya that they didn't decree, you could still come matnitin, come this way. Matnitin be'enot l'tzorech mitzvah. So he says the Mishnah is talking about when it's not a mitzvah. The gam enot tzarud, and he's also not busy. Ve'efshar de'afal gav the Rashi spoken, even though it's possible that Rashi holds this way. The man de'amar lo gazru, the one who said they didn't decree hu l'tzorech mitzvah. It's for needs of mitzvah need. Or im who, or if it tarud dafka, he's busy with something, he's occupied. Matnitin kashite. The Mishnah is difficult on it. The katana is tama en me'asrin tevadai, because it says right that we don't take maaser from something which is a sure thing, surely needed, untithed. Mashma b'shum gavna afilu. So that implies that even in any way, in any manner, afilu l'tzorech mitzvah or shehu, even if it's a mitzvah matter or is busy, and nasin we don't do maaser. Mishum hachi okma keman diamar. This is the reason why he qualified according to one who says gazu al shvut ben hashmashot. They did decree regarding rabbinic prohibitions even during twilight. Okay. Ubenkach. So it says either way. Here the lefsak halacha. How do we paskin? Kerambam. We do like the Rambam. He says naktinan. Beyudkach mutar lomar agoy. So therefore, it says you're allowed to tell a goy. Benashmashot during the twilight. Lasot kol melacha shehid letzorech mitzvah. Whatever there's a mitzvah to do, you're allowed to tell a goy to do that labor during twilight. Shehu tarud benechpaz alea. That he, needs to do this, right? He's very, he's very concerned, about this issue. So therefore, it says the two wrote in this chapter 342. B'Shem Ri, in the name of the Rishon, mutar lomar legoy. You're allowed to tell a goy, benashmashot during the twilight, le'adlik ner, to light a candle. Not like he says this Agaot, this book, the Mordechai of the Mordechai. Shekatvu en madlikin et hanerot afilu al yedei goy. That they wrote that you're not allowed to light the candles even by way of a goy. Umash katav Rabbeinu vehu ben hashmashot. And that which the Torah said, right? It's twilight. Kach piresh Rashi sham. The Rashi explains like that. There. Okay. Good. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch and Aleph. This one, next one is a long one. Okay. Let's take a look. Says Shulchan Aruch, Safek Chashecha, right? If it's doubtfully, night, right? In other words, it's twilight. The who ben hashmashot, we call it ben hashmashot. Hainu kedei l'shiur hiloch gimel revi'ei amil achar shkit tachama. So says the Ramah, right? When does this start, ben hashmashot? It starts at sunset and goes for 3/4 of a meal, right? Which is 13 and a half minutes. That's the amount of time that we have twilight going on. And then after that, it's already like night. So what are we talking about? We're talking about according to the Geonim, right? But according to Rabbi Tam, it's a little bit different, right? It's very different. It's much different. So he describes it according to the Geonim, which the Tur brought down like that. So I guess the Tur paskins like the Geonim. Okay, whatever. Then he goes on to say, so then, right, it tells you what's a meal, right? How much is a meal, right? So a meal in our standards, we're talking about like a kilometer, basically, more or less, right? Approximately a kilometer. And how many kilometers in a mile? 2.2. So that's the calculation. We're talking about a half a mile. So a mil, right, which sounds like a mile, same kind of right pronunciation.
It's 1.6.
I'm sorry.
1.6 kilometers in a mile.
Oh, is that true? I must be talking about kilograms.
Thinking kilograms to pounds.
Right. So what did you say was 1.6 what?
1.6 kilometers to a mile.
Okay. So right. So but anyway, right, the point is that the meal, right, that we're talking about here is like a kilometer, approximately. So but how does that figure out? Because a meal is 2,000 amot, right? And how many? So how do you one amma? How many meters is that? It's 1/2 a meter. So 2 amot is 1 meter. So therefore, right, kilometer and mil are about the same. So the mile sounds like a mil, but it's not actually right. The mile is much bigger, as you said. So anyway, okay. So basically, right? How many minutes is a meal? 18 minutes. In terms of the timing, right? How long does it take to walk that far? it takes 18 minutes to walk a kilometer. So therefore, if you're talking about 3/4, you're talking about 13 and a half minutes. So this is what it is, twilight, 13 and a half. But then you have to remember that we go according to Shaul Zmaniot, like halachic hours, so sometimes it can be longer, sometimes it can be shorter, depending on the season, right? Okay, so then he goes on, also, right, during twilight time, so as we said, right, you cannot do maser if it's a sure thing. And also, we're not allowed to immerse the utensils. So when we say immerse, you know what we're talking about?
Are you talking about in a kli mikveh?
Right. So the thing is, yeah, we're talking about a mikveh, but this is not what we do today. That's what I'm trying to say, because what we do today is, we put it in when it's like a new, we bought it from a goy. But he's not talking about that here. He's talking about immersing it to remove the impurity from it, tuma. This is what you're not allowed to do. Right? But when it comes to immersing it, as a new utensil, the Shulchan Aruch allows that on Shabbat. Ashkenazim, they don't do it. They're stringent about it. Anyway, so I'll move on. And also, right, you're not allowed to do eruv. So also, right, when it comes to eruv, there's different types of eruvs. So which eruv are we talking about? Eruv techumin, right, which is the leaving your town boundaries, right, which is from the Torah, and this is why you're not allowed to do it, because it's from the Torah. But on the other hand, right, those things which are from the Torah, as we said, right, we don't do during twilight because we go stringent. But if it's doubtful, right, stuff like demai, which is doubtfully tied, untied, also we can do that, and also we can insulate, right, the hot foods, which is also rabbinical. And also to make eruv in the courtyard, which is also rabbinical, right? Those things you're allowed to do. Because, when you have a doubt, right, regarding rabbinical issues, we go lenient. That's the way it is. Safek de Rabbanan le'akel, right? That's how we say. Okay, fine. So then goes on, mutar lomar le'anoidi. You're allowed to tell a goy in hashmashot, right, during twilight, le'adik ner l'tzorech Shabbat, to light candles for you. Okay? וכן לומר לו לעשות כל מלאכה, also to tell him to do any labor, right? מותר לו לומר ליהודי בין השמשות להדליק, שהיא לצורך מצווה. So any labor which is for a mitzvah matter, you're allowed to tell him to do. או שהוא טרוד ונחפז עליה, or something which, he's like, something which very much bothers him, that he can't do it. So we allow him to tell a goy to do this kind of thing. He's very, disturbed about it. He's upset about it. He's very concerned. So things like this, you're allowed to tell a goy during Ben Hashmashot, right? During twilight. So one is why this? Because anything you tell a goy, it's already rabbinically forbidden, right? And then it's also because it's twilight, it's doubt, so it's like a double doubt here going on, like rabbinical. It's rabbinical and a doubt. Right? So it's a doubt over a rabbinical issue. So safek d'Rabbanan le'akel. So we go lenient with those things. So these things we allow you to do by way of a goy. If there's a mitzvah matter or something which is like bothering you, and you need to get it done. But the thing is, I always remind people, yes, you can tell a goy to light candles after sunset, but there's no blessing, right? Because you're not doing it yourself. So you can't bless. You're gonna have to light without a blessing. How can you bless when the goy is doing it for you? That's the whole point. Okay, great. I'm just gonna get some water. Give me a second, please. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. Okay. So let's go to Gimel. So what we said in the tour was, right, if you're not sure about, the time of the twilight, right, Ben Hashmashot, so, you do the tree method, right, when the sun is on top of the trees. That's what we said. So it says regarding that, Bet Yosef, right, where is this? In Shabbat, Lamed He Amud Beis. And we said, right, if it's a cloudy day, so, you look at the chickens, right, and you look at the ravens, we got better methods today, right? We have clocks, we have watches, we have all kinds of stuff. Right? We have electronics, so we don't need that stuff. We don't need that. But in the old days, they didn't have these good devices, so they did it more like the primitive way. Okay, great. So let's take a look at the Bet Yosef. That was a Bet Yosef. Okay, let's look at Shulchan Aruch. So it says Shulchan Aruch, Mi she'eno baki b'shiur zeh, right? Whoever doesn't know how long exactly twilight is, yadlik beod hashemesh berosha inlanot, right? So what do? Look at the sun, right? When it's on top of the trees, that's when you do it. That's when you light candles. But I didn't really say it right, right? We're not talking about lighting candles, really. We're talking about doing those, yeah, like candles is also included in that when you're telling a goy to do it, right? As we said. But the point is, right, that anything which is a doubt, and or let's say something you weren't able to do, and it's only rabbinical, so then you can be lenient during that time, right, of twilight. So okay, so what about if it's a cloudy day? Right? So he says, what you do is, look when the chickens are sitting, are sitting on the beams, right? Whatever that means. Only a person who has chickens can really know what that is. They sit there. Okay, whatever. It's all good. So and that's in the city, right? But if he's in the field, right, then we use the raven method, right, as we said, right? When the ravens sit. That's the way we do it, right? Today we have better things, as we said, right? So how much has been Hashmashot? As we said, 13 and a half minutes, right? But according to halachic hours, so that can, fluctuate, right? Depending on the time of year. Sometimes it can be as short as 10 minutes. Sometimes it can be as long as, I don't know, 16 minutes, whatever. Something like that. Okay, great. So as we said, right, also we're allowed to, tell a goy to do all kinds of things in, labors that we need for mitzvah or for, things which are important. That also, right, all those things. Okay, great. So I guess we're done with this. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll go on to Dalid. And Bezat Hashem, tomorrow, right, we'll go back and do Bet because it was a long one, so I skipped it. So okay, I'm trying to be efficient. Use the time wisely. Okay. So, all right, let's go back to Dalid. Let's go to Dalid. So here, Bet Yosef brings Katav Mordechai, right? Mordechai. Shachar Aniat Baruchu Afa Pish Yadain Yom. Look what he says, right? Even though it's still Friday day, it's not Shabbat yet. But if you went to shul, right, and you answered Baruch Hu, you're not allowed to do anymore the eruv pshita, the huadin. So he says it's obvious. Same thing also applies. Then Tomnin also we don't insulate. Why is that? Because once you said Baruch Hu, you answered Baruch Hu, you took on Shabbat. Even though it's early, right? It's still daytime, but you took it on. So then we tell you, right? That's it, right? That don't do any more labors. Don't do any more things which are, from the Torah. It's not gonna work. You got to keep them now. You're in Shabbat mode because you took it on by answering Baruch Hu. So the women who are not in shul, they don't have to worry about this. But we're going to talk later on about another scenario which resembles this, which is that, if most of the town, right, took on Shabbat early. So what happens is everybody gets dragged into that, even against your will. So that can be, also a factor you have to consider. But what they say is, if you have like several different communities, and some of them have not taken on Shabbat yet, because they pray a little bit later or whatever. So then you still have the option, to not take on Shabbat. But if you're praying with them, right, and you said Baruch Hu, you answered, that's it, you took it on, whether you like it or not. Because once you do that, it's night for you. You turned it into night. So regarding this, Bet Yosef says, so says, right, Bet Yosef, for us, right, once you say Mizmor, the Shabbat, right, the Mizmor of Shabbat, you took on Shabbat. That's our custom, right, nowadays. You know what? That's the Tehillim, right? Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat, right, that one. Which was said by Adam Arishon, right? As they say, he was the one who wrote that. So it was the first Shabbat that he had experienced, right? He was inspired, so he made a song there. So that's the one that we're talking about, right? So we say that Erev Shabbat, in the shul, in Kabbalat Shabbat. So it says the Bet Yosef, once you said that, right, that's it, you're in Shabbat. So there's no way to get out. Even though it's not Shabbat yet. You brought yourself into it by saying this psalm. Okay, great. Let's go to Shulchan Aruch. So says Shulchan Aruch like this. Achar aniyat Baruch Hu, right? Once you answered Baruch Hu, as we said, right? You're in the shul. Even though it's still daytime, and you cannot do those things anymore, right? Eruv, right? Insulation, because you're already in Shabbat. That's it. Or Didan, Ave Aminat Mizmor, Lishom Shabbat, Kenyat Baruch Hu Ledidhu. So he says, but for us, we even go in earlier, right? Once we say Mizmor Shila Yom Shabbat, that's it, right? You're in Shabbat, which is before Baruch Hu, so we take it on a little bit earlier nowadays. So there you go, right? So once you did that, once you said that, that's it. You're in Shabbat. But we still give a person the option, to tell his friend who didn't take on Shabbat to do something for him. That he can do. He can tell his friend. But he himself cannot do. Why? Because he took it on. That's it. Okay, fantastic. So I guess we'll stop here. And B'ezrat Hashem, we'll pick it up tomorrow. And we'll do bet, right? We'll go back to do bet. It's a bigger one. So thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Chazak Baruch, Leila Tov. And we'll see you tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem, which is the final day of the week. All the best. Leila Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.
God bless.